The colossal Hubris, a ship bound for New York. The R.M.S. Titanic was not merely a ship, it was a floating manifestation of the American Gilded Age and the burgeoning industrial power that financed it. Though a British registered vessel built in Belfast, its very existence was tied to the immense financial empire of the American Titan, John Pierpont J.P. Morgan. Morgan, through his International Mercantile Marine Company, controlled the White Star Line, and the Titanic was meant to be his crowning transatlantic jewel, a symbol of dominance in a global economic race. It was a vessel built specifically to shuttle the newly minted American aristocracy and the throngs of European immigrants seeking a new life to the port of New York City. When the Titanic departed Southampton on April 10, 1912, it carried a passenger list that reads like a who's who of American wealth. Among them were Colonel John Jacob Astor IV, heir to the Astor real estate fortune and the richest man on board, worth an estimated $85 million, nearly $2.5 billion in today's money. Benjamin Guggenheim, the American mining magnate who uttered the now legendary phrase about dressing in his best to go down like a gentleman. Isidor and Ida Straus, co-owners of Macy's department store, whose final heartbreaking display of devotion would become the stuff of legend. The Unsinkable Margaret Brown, better known as Molly Brown, the tough nouveau riche Denver socialite who would later be hailed for her tireless efforts in the lifeboats. The fact that J.P. Morgan himself cancelled his passage at the last minute, a decision that was met with endless conspiracy theories, only underscores the incredible wealth and power that had been assembled for the maiden voyage. The belief in the ship's unsinkability was a direct reflection of the period's faith in technology, capital, and the seemingly unstoppable march of progress. The night of reckoning, ice, and indifference. The ship was sailing at near full speed in an area known for dangerous ice fields, a common practice at the time, but one of the first failures of judgment. At 11:40 p.m. on April 14th, lookouts spotted the iceberg, a colossal, dark shape suddenly looming out of the blackness. The collision was not a dramatic crash, but a glancing blow, a series of shuddering impacts that sliced the integrity of the ship's massive hull plates. The damage was subtle, but fatal. Water began pouring into 6 of the ship's 16 watertight compartments. The engineer's verdict was immediate and chilling. The Titanic could float with 4 compartments breached, but not with 6. The ship had, at most, 2 hours to live. The crucial tragedy was the immediate mismanagement of the emergency. The ship carried lifeboats for only 1,178 people, barely half of the 2,208 on board. Even though maritime law at the time was woefully outdated and technically did not require more. More catastrophic, however, was the failure to fill even those boats to capacity. Confusion reigned supreme. The Women and Children First protocol, while ensuring a higher survival rate for first and second class women, was implemented erratically, particularly on the port side. One of the most profound American tales of the disaster is that of Isidor and Ida Straus. When Ida was urged into a lifeboat, she stepped back, declaring, "We have lived together for many years. Where you go, I go." She refused her seat, giving it instead to her maid, and was last seen linked arm in arm with Isidor on the deck, a monument to fidelity that would inspire poets and playwrights. Another story of American sacrifice belongs to Major Archibald Butt, the military aide to President William Howard Taft. Butt reportedly maintained an astonishing calm, helping women and children into the lifeboats with cool professionalism. He was last seen trying to control a rush of desperate men, and like many American gentlemen of the first class, he made no attempt to save himself, choosing to uphold the era's chivalric code. The ghost ship, the failure of the Californian. While the disaster unfolded, one of the most controversial elements of the sinking was taking place just miles away: the sheer failure of the SS Californian to render aid. The Californian, a steamship, was so close that her lights were visible to the crew of the sinking Titanic. Earlier in the evening, the Californian's wireless operator, having warned the Titanic of heavy ice, was abruptly ordered to shut down his radio for the night by Captain Stanley Lord. When the Titanic struck the iceberg, The crew on the Californian's bridge saw the rockets fired by the sinking liner, but the lights were interpreted as company signals or fireworks, rather than distress calls. The ship remained stationary, its crew watching, debating, and finally concluding that the mystery vessel had simply steamed away. It was this inaction, the result of poor training, indifference, and a breakdown in communication, that became the focus of the subsequent American and British inquiries. The U.S. Senate inquiry, led by Michigan Senator William Alden Smith, was quickly convened upon the survivors' arrival in New York. Smith, who was not a maritime expert, conducted a vigorous, often theatrical investigation that captivated the American public. The American inquiry grilled the surviving officers and, controversially, the White Star Line's managing director, J. Bruce Ismay, who had survived in a collapsible lifeboat. The inquiry's findings were critical of Captain Lord and the lack of lifeboats, ultimately leading to global change in maritime safety standards. The legacy. The unsinkable spirit. The Titanic disaster ended the period's technological arrogance. It forced the implementation of 24-hour wireless watch on all passenger ships and established the International Ice Patrol, a U.S. Coast Guard-led effort that continues to this day to monitor icebergs in the North Atlantic. The ship's destiny to New York was fulfilled only by its survivors aboard the rescue ship R.M.S. Carpathia, which sailed into Pier 54 in the city amidst a crowd of 40,000 anxious, weeping spectators. The true, astonishing tale of the Titanic is not just in the loss of 1,500 souls, but in the specific, haunting choices made by the Americans on board. It is in the legacy of Molly Brown forcing the men in her lifeboat to turn back and look for survivors, despite the cowardice of the crewmen in charge. It is in the steadfast sacrifice of the Strauses and Major Butt. And it is in the determined, almost immediate response of the US government to hold an inquiry, ensuring that such a tragedy, born of arrogance and complacency, would never happen again. The Titanic was built to be a testament to progress, but it became a more enduring monument to human folly, the unpredictable power of nature, and the ultimate, unforgettable acts of selflessness. It is a story forever etched into the American historical narrative.